Hello and welcome to Precontation Points Video Snack. I read books so that you don't have to. I'm continuing my read-through of Vivid by Ashley Bustamante. Not the first video, go check out the others. Links are posted below. Chapter 7. Sometime later, Celine asks Ava to go to town to pick up some supplies. Celine doesn't remember anything about Elm, but Ava still feels like she's being punished with the amount of work she's been given. Celine asks if Ava wants or needs somebody to go with her. Ava thinks about Elm, but decides that since she hasn't seen him around for a while that she should be alright. The weather is clear as I leave the school grounds. I squint into the bright yellow sun and wonder briefly if a mentalist could draw from it if we were closer. To be fair, I was wondering if the blue magic users could draw upon the sky. They use these really nifty cars that hover around, are powered by blue gems, and drive themselves. Get on this, Musk. Stop faffing about with Twitter and work on technology to actually improve people's lives. As the car zips along, she thinks that she sees yellow, but knows that it's impossible. With red magic's ability to manipulate genetics, naturally occurring yellow plants are becoming less and less, and whenever a dandelion does pop up, people are quick to take care of it. She gets to Violet City, which is literally the first time that this book has mentioned a color outside of the three primaries. However, this isn't named because of purple magic, but rather because it's home of a lot of blue and red magic users, and they mingle together to make purple. Disappointment. As she walks along, a random lady asks her which color stick is better. These are like lipstick, but can be used as a temporary power source, which only raises further questions because in the previous chapter, M used lipstick to white on the mirror. So what's the difference between color stick and lipstick? Especially to the point where color sticks cannot be sold to minors. The city is plastered with more wanted posters, and Ava stops to examine one, despite the fact that she's probably got the stupid posters memorized at this point since they're all over the school. You know, thanks to her. As she's looking at the poster, a random guy comes up and comments about how scary Elm is and offers to teach her how to defend herself against yellow magic. Ava plays along with the two brothers, one blue and one red, in the hopes of learning more about yellow magic. They eagerly say that yellows get inside of your head, but Ava scoffs and says everybody knows that and dismisses them when they cannot offer her any more info about what specifically yellows can do. Ava thinks about how Blake had mentioned that his parents had helped to shut down such and such street in the city. She looks up directions on the interactive city displays. While she's doing so, she notes that there are a lot of benefactors around. She goes over to the street where the wanted posters turn into these weird conspiracy theory flyers. Who is Elm? Above his picture. I step closer and notice smaller print below the photo. Do you feel safe? Do you think the benefactors are telling us enough? Demand answers. Demand them now. Hold the benefactors to their word. Fight the man. She randomly notes that there's a doctor's office nearby that looks like it's gone out of business. She isn't surprised, considering that most people would not want to go under the knife when you can just have a magic healer fix you up in literal seconds. While this is interesting, I'm still going to have to file it under, was this necessary to the continuation of the plot? She continues to look around where she sees more vendors selling literal junk that they promise is going to stop yellow magic. One lady tries to sell Ava something of white magic. However, before the woman can explain more, two benefactors show up, and the woman quickly directs Ava to a nearby shop. In there, Ava takes a moment to collect herself before she gets what she'd come into town for. At the front of the shop is a magazine with more of the Down with the Benefactors propaganda on it. She buys the magazine with her own money and buys the supplies with the credit card Celine had given her. Outside, the benefactors are gone, but so are all of the anti-government posters. Ava wants to talk with the lady who tried to sell her the white magic pendant, but decides that she's pushed her luck enough for one day. Ava goes back to the school where she hands over the purchases and the card before locking herself in the room so that she can read the magazine. However, the words in there might as well be talking about Kim K because they're kind of dumb. Even Ava is frustrated by it. Chapter 8. I keep waiting for something to trigger Celine's memory of the yellow necklace and flowers, but everything seems normal. Elm did a thorough job, and while this is a relief, it's also unsettling. Now that I have a sense of what yellow magic can do, I wonder how much of what I know is real. I didn't recognize the first time Elm used his powers on me. Would I notice if he did again? This is why I have a hard time viewing Elm as a potential romantic interest, mainly because how does she know if any of this is real? Ava wakes up too early, which she hates because every second of free time she now has means she can spend obsessing over Elm. So she decides to go to the practice rooms. There's a really long passage that's doing nothing but biding time until the plot shows back up again. And it's like, fine, I get it. You can't just immediately jump into the plot and you gotta build up to it again. But with Ashley's love for unnecessary padding, this just kinda ticks me off. After a while, Ava knows that there's something kind of off and looks around. Although there are other students in the other practice rooms and she can see them because the doors are all clear plastic, they've all gone still and silent. Ava's head starts to pound and a benefactor tells them that he's alerted Celine. It seems suspiciously like yellow magic. Yellow magic? But that means... I asked loudly. Keep your voice down, Celine reprimands. But it looks that way, yes. We have a better chance of searching for him if everyone isn't anxious and alarmed, so I advise you to be silent. Oh good, they are learning that creating a ruckus isn't actually going to help them catch him faster. Dr. Iris heals her headache but also warns her not to cause trouble. She says that things are complicated, which makes me believe that the adults know that they're being terrible and are trying to cover up their own crimes. Crimes against humanity and illegally detaining people simply for existing, maybe? Who knows? Later, Celine reports that they didn't find anything, which is starting to frustrate the other adults, but she quickly moves on and tells Ava that they'll start a lesson in which Ava knocks balls from the air with her super speed and agility. However, as the lesson progresses, a yellow bird appears before Ava. Celine doesn't react, and Ava knows that this is only just in her mind. Why she's not more freaked out about the entire thing is beyond me. When the lesson is over, Celine goes on to do whatever she has to do next, and Ava makes an excuse of wanting to study outside. At this point, multiple birds appear around Ava's head, and she has enough control to wait long enough for the coast to be clear before she runs into the forest to find Elm. He says he made the bird appear to help her with the lesson, mainly because Ava had been complaining about how boring that it was, but obviously the main reason was that he needed her again. He goes on and says that he hasn't seen her since the last incident with the flowers and wanted to make sure everything is alright. She insists that it is, no thanks to him, and asks him to leave her out of his scheming in the future, thank you kindly. However, as she turns to go, she decides to ask him about the incident that morning. He says that he hasn't been to the school recently and whatever happened wasn't him. He quickly changes the subject and asks if the benefactors know how often she wanders into the woods. 4 days later, Ava goes with Celine to watch the little kids find out what color magic they are. The kid basically walks into a pure white room and one of two cubes will light up either blue or red. Celine introduces Ava to one of the benefactors who is wearing red robes today instead of the traditional black ones of the benefactors. The man says that he has a cold, but he's been too busy to see a healer. Ava thinks that this is weird because most red magic users can heal themselves of the sniffles just fine. They watch several kids find out what kind of magic that they have, but one kid comes in and nothing happens. They all know that this girl is yellow, and since that's illegal, there's no future for her. Although I do have a quick question. Do things like squibs or non-magical people exist? Not just outside of Magnus, but like if two magical people had a baby, is there any chance that the baby could not have powers? Anyway, as you might expect, the child who has magic that's been made illegal has few options. This is naturally upsetting to her parents as well as the little girl. Although Selena insists that everybody has a place, it's obvious that kids like this little girl are going to grow up to be, damn, not even second-class citizens, more like fifth-class citizens. Later, Celine talks to Ava, who is clearly hung up over the terrible situation every would-be yellow magic user is forced into simply for existing. And I understand where Celine is coming from. You cannot trust people not to be criminals when their power is literally to control people's minds and erase memories. We've already seen firsthand some of what can be done. But if we're lucky, we'll find a way to eliminate yellow magic from the gene pool altogether, and no one will have to worry about losing their place or their mind. We're already seeing fewer and fewer mentalist children. You want to help with that work, don't you, Ava? That sounds suspiciously like eugenics, and as a whole, I'm highly against that. To be fair, I'm also against how they're punishing certain sets of literal children simply for existing. So, not the best moral ground here. Ava thinks that before the ban on all things yellow, yellow magic users existed, so what happened to them? When they get back to the school, she takes out the locket, determined to get answers. Chapter 9. A butterfly appears before Ava and guides her into the forest. She asks Elm to teach her about yellow magic, although he only just asks her why, and when she says that she's curious, he warns her not to be too curious and starts to call her kitten in line with that old adage. He takes her through the forest and then gestures to a literal hole and tells her to step inside. But it's at this point that Ava's like, damn, I am going to die. Which, at least she has that much common sense. I've read enough young adult novels where the protagonist was dumb enough to step into the hole without question. Tells her to get closer to the edge and then pushes her in. She falls, but only onto the ground. He disguised the mouth of the cave so that nobody would want to step into it on purpose. Ava has a moment of feeling bad for him, but then reminds herself that it's not her fault that he's a wanted fugitive. He tells her to close her eyes, which she does, and when she opens them again, she's standing in a meadow with a waterfall and more butterflies. He says that he worked with the natural landscape. The waterfall is real, only hidden behind a false wall in case somebody tumbles in on accident. He has a vegetable garden with some kind of light system he'd rigged up, but isn't willing to tell her how he powers it just yet. She gets excited when she sees that he has a yellow magic textbook, but he refuses to let her read it, but promises her that if she comes back, then maybe he'll think about it. She finds her abandoned notebook in among his things, and he makes a joke about how she'd been working to stop yellow magic at the start of the book. Eva mindlessly parrots some of the garbage about how unsafe yellow magic is, but obviously Elm doesn't view it like that, especially since she talks about people controlling other people. But from Elm's perspective, he's the one being controlled here. At this point, Eva begins to feel uncomfortable and says that she should go. Elm wants to walk her back since it's been made obvious on multiple occasions that the girl is hopeless with directions. Eva doesn't want to be around him anymore and refuses. But practically the second she gets outside, she becomes lost. As she's wandering around, she encounters a bear which begins to attack her. And it's legit one of the stupidest things that I've read in a while. Elm shows up and the bear decides to head off rather than to continue to attack Eva, but this only just makes Eva think that the bear is an illusion. However, after they set off together, Elm seems angry, so it's hard to tell if that's an act or if he's angry that Ava's pigheadedness almost got her mauled to death by a bear. Later, Ava goes to see Celine. The older woman is talking about how they just don't know who Elm is controlling in order to get whatever he wants, and that makes him so dangerous. Ava thinks about him and thinks about how he'd never asked for much of anything from her, nothing of importance anyway. Ava also thinks about how much she wants to know more about yellow magic, and about how she wants to learn about white magic, but since she had no reason to go into that area in the city, she can't exactly bring it up. Celine asks Ava why she's not suddenly half as disciplined as she had been. Ava gives a paper-thin excuse of the new work being too difficult, but Celine sees right through that. She asks if Ava has been hanging around Blake, and that only makes Ava angry that Celine is intentionally keeping her from wanting to make friends. But then Celine pulls out a slippery soap argument. If we let those rogue yellows come in here, the entire world will erupt into war and chaos again. Do you want that, Ava? Do you? And if that wasn't bad enough, she pointedly tells Ava that the only reason why Blake's family takes her in every summer is because she asked them to. Once Ava graduates, Celine implies that they'll drop Ava like a piece of trash. Ouch. Literally, the only thing that this scene is missing is something along the lines of, "Don't be a dummy, stay with mummy, mother knows best." However, Celine's words did the trick, and Ava is uncomfortable the next time she sees Blake. He eagerly invites her along the next time they have a free day, and Ava legit doesn't know how to turn him down. They walk out past the school gates to the forest entrance. Blake hesitates when Ava says that she likes to study there alone. He insists that it's not safe with rogue yellows running around, which is a fair point, but Ava keeps offering him excuse after excuse at this point, and is a literal addiction to her. But as Blake argues in concern of Ava's physical well-being, he suddenly goes blank and marches back into the school. Ava goes into the forest where she chides Elm for having used his magic on Blake like that. Elm seems awfully jealous of whatever kind of relationship Ava has with Blake. "Look, if you keep doing things like that, I don't know if I can trust you." "I never claimed I could be trusted. My heart rate increases with the slightest tremor of fear." Look, I get the bad boy appeal, but at this point, Ava is just being a moron over the entire thing, and it honestly makes her crazy and likable, especially because she keeps claiming that she's done with Elm, but the second he turns up, she goes running to his side. Elm tells her to leave if she really doesn't want to be there, but she thinks of the school and how she'd seemed to have exhausted every resource there of anything she was interested in, and she insists that she wants to be there. He then tells her to go into the middle of a herd of wild horses, so she goes, although she's worried about being trampled to death when they start to stampede. Elm tells her that it's okay, that he would never let anything hurt her. Mentalists have the ability to manipulate feelings. I made him feel calmness and curiosity rather than fear.
This is why I can't trust anything Ava is feeling right now.
Is she actually interested in Elm and yellow magic, or has Elm gotten into her mind to play some kind of a long game to get what he wants? Elm puts her onto the back of one of the horses and they race through the forest for a while. When they stop, Elm releases his control over the horse to set him free. Eva steals Elm's hat and tells him so that she has an excuse to see him again. Back in her room, Eva contemplates her life up until this point. She's worked so hard, but she's literally friendless. And for what? A job? She had never felt more alive than when she'd ridden the horse with Elm. However, she continues to acknowledge that she's walking down an insanely dangerous path, but she still wants to know more, so she decides to continue to be guarded but to use Elm for her own intellectual gains. Thanks for listening to my chapter-by-chapter review of Vivid. I'm going to post a new video every day until I run out of chapters. Once I finish with Vivid, I promise to get back to the regular Monday update schedule and resume Fury. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book snarks, always free and updated every morning. And if you've already read all of my main snarks, you can find even more snark on my Patreon. You can access it for $1 a month. Members also get early access to my main Tumblr snark. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my snark so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, just 1 cent per word. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of erotic short stories and now 2 full-length novels. I also sometimes run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do that just so you can know when I might be offering more things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you tomorrow, guys! They use these really nifty cars that hover around and are powered by They use these really nifty cars that hover around, are powered by